We've got a lot to get through today, but partly I wanted to just like give everyone the time to do something that I find no one actually puts the time aside to do, and that is to collect examples and create style guides. It's a big missing piece. Like you'll often hear people saying, I'm trying to get the AI to do something for me, and it just, it doesn't sound like me. It won't produce something that feels to the quality or style that I need. And the main reason is that there's a missing piece that people just haven't done, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. And hopefully the result will be a bunch of stuff that we learn that we can apply to other things that we want to create stylistic consistency with. So not just LinkedIn posts, but how we write our emails, how we write blog posts, how we write documents as well. So I want to just quickly start with a little bit of context, as always. This whole sprint has been about context engineering. And I've been thinking over the last week or two, as I've been giving a bunch of different workshops to our cadets and others, about how to sort of put some meat on the bones of this whole idea of context engineering. Firstly, always try to find people who can help us make sense of this super fast moving field of AI. One of the best sense makers I've found over the last year or two is a guy called Dan Schipper. Runs a very interesting AI native company, meaning a company that's sort of a startup that's been built on AI. It's all about AI. And he's a fantastic thinker and experimenter with AI in his company. There's a great recent podcast interview with Dan and Lenny Rashitsky, who I know a lot of you follow. Really recommend listening to that, following Dan, reading his blog, etc. He's really a good sense maker. Now, most of us have had a play with something like Lovable, one of these vibe coding apps. And what I wanted to just quickly talk about was the way I'm now thinking about this kind of an AI startup company, this kind of an app, is effectively in the business of context engineering. Let me try to explain. So when you think about what happens when you log into Lovable and you start vibe coding, remember how we talked previously about the fact that an LLM is a next token predictor, and it can only predict this token and these series of tokens on the back of the prior tokens that it is given. So these tokens get predicted on the basis of all of these tokens getting fed into the model, and it is then predicting these next tokens. So if you think about what an app like Lovable is, behind the scenes, what Lovable have done is created a series of prompts and tools, knowledge, and other things that create the context such that when you hop into this little chat box here and type your message, please make me a landing page for my company, what gets prepended into that context is all the stuff that they've worked on over the last couple of years, building prompts and tooling to create something that is good at software development, website building. So you come in and put your message here. What you don't see is all this stuff behind the scenes that they've been working on that creates the token sequence that then predicts these tokens that produce the HTML, CSS, JavaScript code to give you your landing page. So in effect, Lovable, and even some of the AI companies we have based here at the Hub that are working on interesting new products and services, are all effectively doing this. They're drawing on proprietary knowledge bases, proprietary prompts and instructions, now increasingly with agents, proprietary tools, and they're creating the context or engineering the context so that when a user comes and types in something like, make me a stock portfolio, or create me a LinkedIn post, or whatever it might be, their secret sauce is the context that they've engineered here that allows that message from the user to come in, that instruction, and produce excellent tokens out the other side that create something valuable out the other end. So that's kind of what's going on under the hood. And if you think about just about any AI app or startup or product, that's basically what it's in the business of doing. is creating some context, engineering some context here that combined with some user input produces a valuable output. So anyway, that's my new way of thinking about all of these different tools. And I sort of look at them and I think, what are they doing behind the scenes to create that context? And I've got something quite cool to share with you about this. So that's, if you like, the context engineering piece. So something quite cool to share with you. Just see if I've got this right. Firstly, just make sure you've got access to this deck because there's a bunch of useful resources in here. The deck is tinyurl.com/hub11org, as in 11 August, and there's a QR code there if you want to quickly snap that. Hub11org. Okay, so just quickly go back to this thing I wanted to share with you. One of the best ways to learn context engineering is to do something quite naughty, which is to go and learn the best practices by studying the leaked AI agent prompts that others have basically published online. So just this week we had ChatGPT's GPT-5 model launch, and pretty quickly someone has jailbroken the ChatGPT prompt and shared it, and it's fascinating to go and actually read how OpenAI prompt the GPT-5 model in ChatGPT so that it gives you the kinds of outputs that make it valuable. You can see, we could jump into it quickly if you like, but you could see how they set up the different tools that it uses, how it uses memory, how they use sort of anti-patterns to get it to prevent it from doing certain things. It's very, very interesting. Claude Code is now one of the most popular AI agents for coding. You can go and inspect its prompts, the cursive prompts, and then a whole bunch of the others, including Lovable, Manus, etc. So if you're wanting to learn about prompt engineering and how to build these kinds of projects or these kinds of products, there really is no better way to learn about that than going and looking at how these companies have created the prompts, instructions, tools, etc. That make those products magical, those agents. So those will link you through to those different resources. Really great way to learn by studying those things. Okay, so how to write like me or how to write like you. Not actually such an easy thing to do, but we can do a hell of a lot better than just jumping into ChatGPT saying, write a post about X or write a post about Y. Because if you think about the token sequence I showed you before, we're just not giving it enough context to be able to produce any kind of decent result for us. So I sort of see this as the basic recipe to get a decent draft post of just about anything, including an email. The sort of three building blocks are, is there some context about me, i.e. me, my job, my role, the organization I work for, the sort of lens through which I look at producing those artifacts, those posts. So, you're never going to be able to write like me if you don't have some sense, if you can't infer my perspective on a given topic. The second thing you need to be able to infer is my writing style. So if you can infer what my take on a given podcast that I just watched or a given new product launch is, but then you write it like an American, then you're not writing like me. So one, you need to sort of be able to infer my perspective on topics. Two, you need to infer the sort of style, the tone of voice, and the way that I write. And then what we really want to get to is have something which is something like a sort of pipeline, which we currently have in our brains, which we can start to kind of automate, where we come across ideas, we feed them into a pipeline, this is all set in place and automated, and out the other end we get candidate posts that we can then use or not use as we like, because the effort to create these things is extremely low. And I think to set expectations, my sense with this stuff is like, a big problem with writing is just the blank page problem. Like, how do you get off the blank page? The blank page is such a tough place to start. If this could get you 50% of the way, that means it's reduced by half the amount of effort that goes into creating a post, which in theory means you should be able to do twice as much of it. If it could get you to 70, 80%, that would be an unbelievable outcome, to go from blank page to a candidate draft that you really just need to top and tail, make a few changes to, and post it. But you're not starting from absolute scratch. So the area that we're going to focus on today, in previous sessions, we built some tools to build the About Me, and I would hope that all of you in your AI assistants now have customized those with a little About Me section, so that we can reuse that content in today's exercise. If not, you're going to have to create something, and I'll show you how to do that quickly. I was very disappointed to see that LinkedIn this week have removed the feature of downloading that bloody profile PDF from your LinkedIn profile. Which is a real shame, because you could just drag and drop that profile PDF into ChatGPT and say, write an About Me based on this PDF. So now, of course, there's a way around that. We just need to go and copy and paste, chuck it into a Google Doc, save as PDF, and then put it into ChatGPT. But that's a real shame. So the bit we're going to focus on today is really this bit here. Next week, we're going to talk more about this. How do we refine these ideas? What's a pipeline look like to get better at understanding for a given idea we might have? Firstly, where do those ideas come from? How do we get good at collecting ideas? Where are we storing them? And then how are those feeding into a pipeline, not just to create posts, but to sort of turn that knowledge into valuable artifacts. So we'll spend more time on that next week. This week, I want you all to be able to walk away with something useful in terms of learning this technique around style guide creation, because you can apply it to just about everything, not just LinkedIn posts. Okay. So how to write like me? Let's go back to the token sequence and the context that we're engineering here. For this thing to produce a useful draft LinkedIn post, you can imagine, we need tokens in the sequence here that know about me, that know about how I like to write. I then introduce an idea, and it's able to then predict a series of tokens here that feed off of this context that I've given it. Okay, so I'm going to keep coming back to this, because there's no better way to kind of reinforce this idea that what an LLM is an incredible next token predictor, but it's only able to produce good tokens here if we give it the right context. Okay, so the way we are going to make a style guide is we're going to start with a meta prompt. And that is a prompt that I've been working on for weeks and weeks and weeks now, refining, improving. That will allow you to take that prompt, give it a series of examples, and out the other end will come a style guide. And for those of you that have worked in any sort of creative function and worked with, say, a designer, or worked with an external agency, or wanted people on the team to adhere to a certain sort of set of stylistic guidelines, whether they're design, whether they're how things are written, the style guide is kind of like the guidebook for how to produce things that are consistent with a brand or a voice or a perspective. So a style guide is a really valuable thing. We're going to learn how to create them today. You're going to create them for your LinkedIn posts, for your emails, for your general document writing, proposals, etc., once you learn how to do this. Okay. So to create the style guide, we're going to use this meta prompt that I've created. We're going to give it a bunch of example posts. We're going to make sure it knows a bit about me, about us, and out the other end, it's going to predict tokens that are going to be a fantastic style guide that we can reuse over and over again. Okay, let's jump into the exercise. So the first thing we have to do, and I'm going to put sort of 15 minutes aside for this, because this is one of those things you just do not have the time to do, and unless I'd organized the session and forced you to do it, you just wouldn't do it. So what we need to do is pretty simply collect examples of LinkedIn posts. So the first thing I'd recommend doing, if you don't already have something like this, is in your Google Drive, create a new Drive folder called Prompt Library, My Prompt Library, something like that, a place that you can aggregate these resources. And then what we're going to do for the LinkedIn, the LinkedIn examples is literally, we are just going to go into LinkedIn. We're going to look at our, so let's just take you to first principles here. If you log into LinkedIn, this is what you're going to see. You're going to click on your own profile. You're going to scroll down. Then you're going to see activity, and you're going to click on show all posts. Okay, now those posts are going to be a combination of things that you've originated as well as what you've reposted from others. And I think for the purpose of this exercise, we just want ones that you have posted. Now you might think, I haven't been very active on LinkedIn. I don't really have much. I haven't posted very much. Or the stuff that I've posted hasn't been very good. That's okay. You can, if that's the case for you, you can simply go and copy and paste posts from other people who you think write well and write in a way that kind of is consistent with how you like to write. So absent of having your own examples, feel free to go and copy and paste examples from others that you really like. And all we're doing here in this document is we're literally just, what I'm doing is I'm copying and pasting. I'm putting a little horizontal line between each post. So if you look here, you go insert, and you say horizontal line, you'll put a horizontal line between each one that you copy and paste. And what you can do is, I have a mix of literally sort of text copied and pasted, but I also have screenshotted a bunch of mine. So for example, where I might have posted a video, or I might have included a rubric or a graphic or a chart or something like that. I will, like this one for example, I'll either go and copy and paste the text and then separately copy and paste this image into this file, or I'll just screenshot posts holus bolus. Quite nice thing about screenshotting them like this is that you can also capture some of the data in here. So things like likes, comments, etc. And, you know, some graphics and so on. So take 15 minutes to create a document like this. The more examples, the better. Of course, there are different kinds of LinkedIn posts. You know, some are like product announcements, some are what we call takes. You know, it's like, I read this article, this is what I think. I've got a nice little list of them here, which we'll mostly use next week. But, you know, you've got takes, which is your opinion on something you've read or seen. You've got updates, which are generally like you're building in progress, you're giving people updates on, sorry, you're building in public, you're giving people updates on what you've built, your milestones, etc. You might have a story or anecdote. You might signal boost someone else by sharing their content. You might be one of those people who likes to sort of generate engagement by asking questions and getting people to comment on stuff. And then obviously announcements of products, fundraisings, partnerships, etc. So there's a few different types there. And we'll spend more time looking at that next week in terms of the ideas. But for now, just go and spend some time copying and pasting into a Google Doc.
And Chris, if it's from a blog, then it's just as well, right?
Yeah, I think in the sense that you probably would cross-post a blog that you'd written to LinkedIn anyway. So if you haven't got it on LinkedIn, but it's a blog post, then I think that's fine. So use this time to go and create that document. I should say that one can imagine doing this both at a personal level and then separately at a company level. So, you know, either or today, you can pick whichever one you like, but I post personally on LinkedIn, but we also post a bunch of stuff through the Hub account on LinkedIn, and I would tend to have two separate examples. So one for the company, one for me personally, but the very same approach applies.
Chris, can I ask a question of the
Yeah.
group?
Yeah.
Who else has just stopped looking at LinkedIn and reading posts lately? Like, you just know it's dribble for the most part. Like, that's how I kind of feel about when I go on LinkedIn now. Because like people are,
I noticed
really
that.
good people are using it properly, but there's
Yeah.
so many more people that are not, and it's just like.
I sort of noticed that the content has really dried up. That's ironically, I would have expected a lot more slop. There is slop, but the one way to always tell is if you're being shown posts from like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, etc. You really know there's not a lot in your feed for them to surface. I actually have a hypothesis that, and it's not necessarily an original idea, but there is really a lack of high quality content. And I think if you can produce high quality content, decent content, you'll get a lot of engagement. So part of this is, how do you produce stuff that doesn't sound like slop, or isn't slop? I will say, like, I'm putting a rule on everyone who walks out the door here. Do not use AI generated images in your LinkedIn posts, please. That is the easiest tell, and we've all already developed blindness to AI generated images. They look terrible. Unless you really know what you're doing, the AI images look shocking. Don't use them. Just put a plain text post. Increasingly, the high value stuff is looms. Like, you jump on, Gideon taught me a great, Gideon here at the Hub taught me a great lesson, which I'm going to save for next week in detail, but just to sort of preview it, is he said one thing he learned is that when you flip from thinking like, here's how to do such and such a thing, and you write a post which is sort of like instructive, that creates a massive barrier, because for you to say here's how to do something requires a level of expertise on your part that just is lacking, and you just chicken out, like, I can't do that. So the simple hack is to go, here's how I do X or Y or Z, which basically opens up the permission space to go and share whatever it is, because this is just how you do it. Doesn't necessarily mean this is the best practice or you're an expert or whatever. It just means this is how you do it. And I think that is going to be my entire LinkedIn strategy from now on, is just, here's how I do X or Y or Z. There's a big gap in the AI space. People are looking for tips, tricks, etc. If you just share what you've learned on a loom, here's how I do this, or here's what I learned, or whatever it is, that's a pretty good content strategy as well.
Do you think LinkedIn's suffering because there's a lot of layoffs in the white collar market with AI? Like in, say for example.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe everyone's just fired.
Maybe, but I would almost expect that to create more content. People would just be sitting around engagement farming on LinkedIn the whole time. But I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery. Okay, how are we going? We got some examples? I mean, the beauty is, once you have that up in a Google Doc, of course, a Google Doc is a living, breathing resource. You can share that with teammates. You can always go and update that at any point in time, and you're going to be able to reuse it over and over and over. But hopefully that's given you at least a starting point for some examples. Let's move on to the next step. So I want to just quickly take you through this prompt and how I got to this prompt. In fact, this isn't a prompt, it's a meta prompt. A meta prompt is a prompt that creates a prompt. And ironically, this is a meta prompt that creates a prompt that in turn is going to create a prompt. So the whole idea is that AIs now in August 2025 have been trained on everything, including best practices of how to write prompts. So you don't really need to be writing prompts from absolute scratch anymore. In addition to that, certainly Claude has some specific capabilities around writing prompts. So my go-to generally when I'm doing prompting is I'll jump into Claude and I'll do my prompts in Claude. If you don't already have a free Claude account, you should just have one. You get a few free messages a day. It's really good for prompting. Let me take you through this because I think, I'm all about we need to learn how to become better and better at context engineering and prompting. So always with our prompts, we start with the role and then the goal. So the role here, you're a Pulitzer Prize winning editorial analyst, because what we want this particular one to do is we want it to analyze. This one isn't going to be writing our posts. This one is going to be it's going to be analyzing our existing posts and producing a style guide by analyzing the posts. So I want you to create a comprehensive style guide that will enable an AI agent to write posts on behalf of that user that sound authentically human and genuinely reflect their voice. So your mission is you'll carefully analyze the provided LinkedIn posts to extract the user's authentic professional voice and create a detailed, practical style guide that any AI assistant can use to draft posts that feel genuinely written by this person, not generic AI content. And then it is a 10-page novella with a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know was even a thing, but it is a thing. There's a thing called voice archaeology. It's a way of sort of editorially analyzing how things are written. So you can see this phase one is to do a sort of dissection of the human voice, map their professional persona spectrum, identify their vulnerability comfort zone, do they share struggles, failures, behind the scenes moments, etc. Capture the linguistic DNA. And then there's sort of like the content architecture analysis, hooks, body structure, etc., etc. Sort of a key part that we then move into are examples. Remember our token sequence. If we want the thing to produce stuff that sounds like us, the more examples we can provide, sort of extract samples, etc., the better the outputs are going to correlate with our sort of underlying style. So you can see all sorts of detail here, sort of different sections here, how they move from idea to idea, professional terms they use naturally, recurring phrases that generally sound like them, which, if you've put 20 posts or whatever it is in there, it'll analyze those and it'll pull out and tease out these different sort of fingerprint or DNA of how you write. And then really importantly, the AI detection avoidance, the critical AI anti-patterns to avoid. And you'll see a long list of these things here. Now, those are not things actually that the AI came up with. Let me show you how I came up with those things. So the first thing I did was let me see if I can find my Perplexity chat history here. A list of 10 typical lexical patterns that ChatGPT and other AIs use that are tells for written AI content. I had Perplexity help me with that, and then I did a deep. Oops, ChatGPT is down for that. I had ChatGPT do a deep research exercise here, which I'll show you. My prompt for it was, give me the canonical list of lexical patterns that ChatGPT and other AIs use that are tells for written content. And it went off and for 8 minutes did 52 searches and came back with this comprehensive list of lexical tells based on all sorts of research papers, etc., that I was then able to use in my prompt here. So this includes pretty much the full list of things that tend to give away that that something is written by an AI. And then you'll see lastly here the verbatim samples. What that is going to do is it's going to lift literally 2 to 4 sentences that illustrate these different elements of your posts. Be they so four different 4 different samples, or actually, 5 different samples, depending on how many it can find, which it thinks are good exemplars. In other words, like, these are very good examples of how this person writes. So your end style guide should have those samples in it. And then increasingly what these sort of advanced prompts do is they put a checklist at the end. So this is quite interesting. You know, before posting as this person, ask yourself, would they say this out loud to a colleague? Does it match their energy level? Not too hyped? Have you avoided all AI tells? And what it does is puts these things in brackets because they correspond with sections we've had earlier here. So this is called prompt adherence, and the smarter these models get, the better they adhere. In other words, the better they follow the instructions that you give them. So now that we're at, Claude 4 and we're at ChatGPT 5, they are really good at following instructions, which means the better the instructions we give them, the more they'll follow follow and do the things that we ask them to do. So we can actually give them quite complex 10-page instructions for what we want them to do. And if that's all we ask them to do in this chat thread, they'll do it pretty well. Okay, so, and then the final thing is the deliverables. So the final thing it's going to give us, we want it to give us a style guide. And there's sort of these quality checks that it does to make sure that, that it's actually adhered to all the instructions we gave it before. So if you go to the top of this document and you copy all of that text, and we start a new chat, I'm going to recommend you do it in Claude. Use one of the free chats that you have there, but you can do this. In fact, ChatGPT, new GPT-5 is good for this too. And what you're going to do is you are going to paste that style guide meta prompt, and you're going to drag and drop. So let's just go back to our exemplars or our examples, and we are going to file, download. If you put images and things in there, obviously you want to download that as a PDF. If yours was just plain text, you can download that as Markdown or just a text file. But if you had images or any media in there, obviously they don't get preserved as in a Markdown file or in plain text. So download it as a PDF to be safe. And these models, Claude, ChatGPT, etc., are very good at reading PDFs, both the text as well as the imagery that you put in there now. So we have now got our instructions, and we're going to drag and drop our examples in there. Hopefully, if you're just logging into the free version of Claude, which you can just log in with your Gmail account, it takes 1 minute even if you don't have an account. Hopefully it gives you a few messages with Sonnet. If it doesn't, then we'll use ChatGPT. One of the things we get to do is we get to use both. We're going to do it in Claude, and then we're going to do it in ChatGPT and see which one we like. So we drag those two things in there, we hit go, and let's see what it does.
Aren't you becoming a machine there, Chris? Aren't you becoming what you're trying to avoid?
In what sense?
Well, it's so stereotyped on who you are to every nitty-gritty detail. Haven't we lost Chris?
I don't think so.
You're in there somewhere, are you?
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting point. And I want to mainly focus on it next week, which is that the first draft of of a post or an article or whatever it is, I don't necessarily see the writing of that first draft as the most important step. I see the step that's upstream from that, which is, what's the idea here? What are we writing about? What's the unique, interesting thing? The actual typing the words out, I'm happy to outsource that in the way that I might outsource that to a human to say, hey, listen, can you do me a first draft of this? I want it to be about X or Y or Z. And then I'm going to top and tail it to make sure that it does actually represent what I thought about it. But increasingly, I think, certainly from a personal perspective, is I want to be upstream from that, finding interesting things, not sitting around spending hours and hours and hours trying to articulate them to share them with people. So I think I'm going to be better off, we're all going to be better off if we can spend more time out finding interesting things, reading, watching, listening, learning, and less time sort of, with our meat sticks on the computer, pumping out, literally stenographers writing what we just listened to or heard. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's where the value is shifting. The value is shifting upstream to the curation aspect, not necessarily the writing post aspect. That's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, because I understand what you're trying to do and all that. I guess if I was writing, like formal documents, not posts, formal documents to do with a response to an RFT or a business plan,
Yeah.
things like that, I would hone in on what you're doing here.
Yeah.
If I'm writing a post, I want the post to be me.
Yeah, but I would challenge that, because I think, and we'll deal with this more next week. But let's say in the car on the way here, you listen to an interesting podcast, and it sparked a bunch of different ideas for you, and you just jumped onto the voice record feature of ChatGPT, and we'll talk more about this next week. And you just dump your thoughts. You just really thought this was interesting. My takeaways were boom, 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 and you just capture those notes. To automate the process of going from that, which really is the act of originality. It's that thought, the thing that you listen to, the thing that sparked the insight, the thing that you are now wanting to share with others. The step to turn that into a draft, I think, is a less valuable step now. And I think it's something that if we can have the AI help us get to the skeleton of that, at least 50%, maybe 80%, all we really need to do is top and tail it so that it matches our original shower thought that we had, which was, I have a bolt of inspiration here. This thing that I heard has given me an idea. I've captured it at source, and I've let the sort of downstream process play out to give me something, which, frankly, if I didn't do that, I would probably never write that post. So what's the lesser of two evils here? Me not writing the post, or having an AI help me at least get to the point where it's a candidate. Look, this is all a little bit strange. I mean, no doubt.
I hear what you're saying.
It's a shift in how we work,
But I guess in my creative activities, I'm more visual with diagrams than with writing. And to me, it's the diagram, the visual. Like I might just get an idea and I'll draw an architecture of that. That's where the creative bit is. Writing about it, it's
each to their own, but even that, I think there are opportunities. You scribble something on a piece of paper that you're comfortable with. Having that turn into a digital diagram that's easier for people to read, understand, explore would, I think, be quite a good step. So I think there's a lot of potential there. Okay, so we've got has everyone managed to get to this point now where you've got your style guides?
Yeah, it sounds so beautiful.
Yeah?
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Did you put a prompt in, or did you just drop those two?
No, I put the prompt in. The prompt was the critical step. So this was the prompt here, which I linked to in.
I think the question was, did you put a prompt as well as those two?
Oh, in addition to it? No, I didn't. Sorry, I didn't understand. No, I didn't, because the prompt
Built into
literally starts with, you are a Pulitzer Prize winning blah. So I didn't need to. It and with Claude, any text in a prompt over a certain amount, it just doesn't even put it in the text box. It just literally just pastes it like that. But it is reading it. It is reading it as if as if you typed it in there. Yeah,
And so for your actual voice and style guide,
yeah.
is that in a certain format?
The voice and style guide,
Aside from just dumping stuff out of,
no, the voice and style guide is in a very specific prompt format, you know, role, goal, analysis, and super detailed 10 pages of sort of analysis. And what it's going to do is, in this step here,
You mean the other document with the examples?
yeah, the samples that you suck out of your own LinkedIn, was
literally just pasted them,
that? Okay,
literally
so
just
you didn't
pasted
put any
them.
format in them
No.
or
No, I mean,
tell them when it started or finished or anything?
no, and if I was doing it purely in text, I would put a delimiter between each one, just so that it's easier for the AI to see, oh, that's the end of one, that's the beginning of another, because I noticed that when you paste out of LinkedIn, for example, like I copy and pasted, if I didn't have this separator, it would all just feel like one big thing.
Yeah.
So I just use the horizontal line just to separate them. But if
And you've put the original links from LinkedIn? Oh,
No.
look at that top one.
No, I don't. And then for screenshots, because they're quite self-contained and you can sort of see the beginning of it and you can see the end of it, I don't feel a need to separate each of them. Okay, so if you've done,
Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
ChatGPT asked me whether I want an AI ready prompt pack, which it then created. Is that
yeah, so I would say, you know, ChatGPT in the last couple of days has had a bit of a shift in how it works. And the shift is that now what basically happens is, you don't necessarily see this, but we're all AI people, we know, we're grown-ups, we can handle this explanation. It has what's now called a model router. Before, you would drop this down and you'd have a whole bunch of models that you could choose from. Now, what they've done is, depending on the nature of your question, there's a sort of step that happens where there's a little model that figures out, should I send this to the really clever one, or should I send it to this one, or should I send it to that one, which I really don't like. So what I would do in this instance is I would choose the thinking model if you're going to use ChatGPT for this exercise. Actually, I think there's a setting here somewhere now. They've put it back in because there've been a lot of people unhappy about it, where we can actually show the legacy models. Here we go. So if you liked 4.0, which I did and a lot of other people did, click on your profile, go to settings, go to show legacy models here, toggle that on. Now we should have legacy models 4.0.
Where's Minnie? It's gone.
Let me show you again. So click on your settings here, and under general, you'll see there's this show legacy models. By default, yours will be off. Switch it on, and what it does is it adds 4.0 back in here. So if you want to use 4.0, you can use 4.0 there. All right, so hopefully everyone's done that exercise and you have at least one. You know, if you did it in Claude and you did it in ChatGPT, you could choose different models. But for the purposes of moving on, let's copy our style guide. Let's go back to our prompt library here and create a new document called call it my LinkedIn style guide. If you watch for 1 second here, I'm going to show you a couple of power tips to really have Google Docs be a great editor for Markdown, which is the language that we use with LLMs. So you'll see if you go to edit, you'll be missing this copy as Markdown, paste without paste from Markdown. I'll explain why that's quite a valuable thing to have. To enable it, just go to Tools, Preferences, and you'll see this is unchecked in yours. if you haven't done the step previously, click on Enable Markdown. And then what that allows us to do is whenever we're in an AI session like this, if we copy something in Claude or if we copy something in ChatGPT, we are effectively copying to our clipboard the markdown version of that content. So let me just demonstrate this. If I went into a text editor and I paste that, this is what it looks like. You'll see it's got these, there's no formatting, right? So it just looks like, what are these hashes? What are these asterisks? This is called markdown. And all of these things have an important function. For example, double asterisk makes something bold. Single asterisk here shows that it's a bullet. 2 hashes makes it a level 2 heading, and so on. If I just preview this in my text editor, can't do it. If I preview this one, just to demonstrate it, you'll see that it actually shows it rendered. So in Google Docs, we can do the same thing. When we go and copy something like our style guide, we come back in here and we can say edit, paste from markdown, and you'll see it pastes it as formatted text.
So how did you turn that on again?
Tools, and then just enable markdown here.
Good. Well.
All right, let's put this thing to the test now. We've got a style guide now. Does it work? So we would copy our style guide, and in this instance, I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to select all, Command A. I'm going to go edit, copy as markdown, because we want to use markdown when we're going to talk to our AI agent again. And I'm going to create a new chat here. I'm going to use, let's see, we'll use the thinking model. I'm going to paste my by the way, you do not have to take that style guide verbatim. It's a starting point. You are more than free and encouraged to tinker with it. Change what it assumed up at the top here. You know, I don't want mine to actually say that. I just want mine to say I'm the... So feel free to change it. If you see things in there that you don't like, remove them. Don't feel obliged with any of these things to take them verbatim. So I've got mine now. I'm going to copy as markdown. I'm going to go to a new chat. And in this chat, we make a nice little line. And above that, I'm going to say, please write a LinkedIn post for me about this article that I just read that I think is interesting. Okay, very basic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle on web search here, and I'm going to give it a link to a post. I could just copy and paste the post that I want to blog about, post about. You know, there's a lot of formatting and weird HTML stuff, so I would typically just go print, save it as a PDF. You know, if you're on a Mac, sort of power tip is that you would then if you wanted to open that, and if I saw some things I didn't want in there, like the footer, I'm just going to delete that. file, save it. And then I'm going to go back to my chat and I'm going to drag that PDF in. Now, I'm being incredibly lazy about, please write a LinkedIn post for me about this article that I just read that I liked. Now, really, I should put a little bit more in there. I should say, I thought it was fascinating about this or that, just a little bit to give it something to anchor. Otherwise, I'm relying on it. It's got to really work hard on my style guide and so forth to produce something that matches, it'll match my style, but doesn't match my perspective on this issue. That's really where I should put a bit more into it. Anyway,
so Chris, you're going to have to, when you want it to follow these instructions you've set up, you're going to have to post it in there like that. Or can you, I know under project, there
Yes.
are rules you can paste it in. Is that the same thing?
It's a great point. I'll come to a way of doing it in projects, which is a really nice way of doing it too, because then you set up a project called LinkedIn Posts, as I've done here. We'll get to it in a sec. You take your style guide, you put it in there, and you would just reuse that project over time. Oh, I found something new and interesting. You put it into the project. It already knows it should use your style guide. Projects now are available through the voice on the phone. So if you've got an idea for a post or something like that, you just jump into the project, dump a voice note into it.
Is that available on Claude Voice?
Sorry? What is that, sorry?
Are projects available on Claude Voice? Do you know?
I'm not sure. So give it a try, and I'll be interested to see what you think. Is it adhering? Is it following your instructions? Does it sound very AI, or does it sound more like you? Try it both in ChatGPT with different models. So that was 5 thinking. I'm going to try it now with 4.0.
Is there a reason why you put draft in there?
Not really. Post draft, no, not really.
Because I know with some now that if you linked, not necessarily with ChatGPT, but with other tools, if you post it in there and you've linked your LinkedIn or you've linked different things, it will actually go out and actually do it using the agents.
Okay.
That's why I was asking.
And then I'm going to do one in Claude here. So when we're doing this sort of test across different models, this sort of goes by different names. One you can call it a vibe check. I'm sort of vibe checking to see, is the model following my style guide? Is it producing something that is better than if I sort of didn't give it that guidance? Another technical term for it is sort of evals or evaluations. I'm evaluating which model is doing a better job of writing for me. Is it Claude? Is it ChatGPT? Is it GPT-4o? Is it some other model? And when we get into N8N in a second, we of course, through OpenWriter, have all of the different models available. So we can now sort of test it with lots of different models and see which one we think writes the best for us. So I'm going to post my post in there. I'm going to give it a title. I mean, I find
This is
it does a really good job. I don't know if you guys are finding the same thing.
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Much better? Yeah. Anyone else finding good results? Yeah? What's it like in non-English? Does it work? No?
I'm not using Spanish.
No? Not using in Spanish?
Try.
I wonder if you need to, I don't imagine you'd have to change the style guide language, would you?
No, everything.
Keep the style guide in English, but still have it just write in Spanish.
Data, everything's in English.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for the models,
Oh, I couldn't get to
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
I have a rule that says don't translate, rethink and write again. Because then it's just a bad translation.
Good. What do you think, Matt? Are you getting any decent results?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
going well.
I actually posted a video in it for it to pull from the video. Yeah.
Which AI did you use?
ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'm using ChatGPT as well.
Did it watch the video?
Sound like something you'd say?
I don't, well, the problem is I
We
threw in
don't
a random one because
ChatGPT can't watch videos, so I don't.
Maybe, we don't know. It's 5, right? It seems to it.
It won't tell you.
One thing that I noticed with mine is that Claude writes slightly longer, more detailed posts than ChatGPT does. So exactly the same inputs you can see here on mine.
You're length constrained in LinkedIn anyway, which is so, isn't it? Wouldn't you give that as a constraint?
You could specifically prompt it to be more or less verbose, I guess, or minimum character counts. Now, the thing is, it actually knows, because it's been trained on a ton of LinkedIn best practices and stuff like that. It knows not to write a 30-page LinkedIn thing, you know, because no one's going to read it. So you generally don't need to, but I found if I just did a word count on this, I'm pretty sure that the 185 words, and if I went to my
Can run 2 screens. 6K. You use 2 screens. Use 2 screens and that.
254 words. So a bit more.
Terabyte storage.
And then in terms of the eval or the vibe check, it's just you reading it going, does this pass the sniff test? Does this sound more human, more authentic, more like me? Or does it still have that sort of AI smell to it? And then of course, if you see things that you don't like, you can go back into your style guide and you can make those tweaks in the style guide. Say, you know, never use this term or do this or do that. Indeed, what you can do is you can take the whole style guide back into your AI. I quite like doing this with Claude. I'll give it the full style guide. I'll say make it an artifact, and then you could do this in ChatGPT too. Make this an artifact or a canvas, and then you edit it. So rather than it producing the whole thing every time, you're just making edits to the thing. So let me just read this and see if it's okay. So I want to do let's see how Opus performs. I mean, mine is really good. If I use the best model, it's really, really good. I'm looking at that going, if I spent hours writing this, it would look like
Scary good, isn't it?
and it doesn't have any AI tells in it, doesn't have any M dashes, doesn't have any of the sort of, garbagey things that immediately So hopefully that's got you up and running. I think what the main thing I want to show you all there was this pattern of creating style guides for different things. So you're going to be able to take that style guide. I tried this earlier, and you're going to be able to give it to Claude or ChatGPT and say, I now want you to create a style guide for my email writing. So for the emails, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but if we go to exercise 4, which you can do at home, we're not going to do this here. You're going to do a similar thing. You're going to collect email examples and paste them into a Google Doc. I'll show you a template here quickly. And what I found with this that works well is I copy and paste sent emails that I'm proud of. So you're really curating. You've sent thousands of emails, so you're really just picking a few here that you think are good examples of how you like to write emails. And what I do with mine is I'm picking and choosing emails for different situations. So for example, emails to colleagues, emails to my boss, emails to customers, friendly ones, tough ones, detailed ones, short ones. Obviously you're redacting and deleting personal information from those, but then I'm sort of creating just a category heading, pasting examples here, next category, pasting examples here, and so on and so forth, and creating those examples. Then I'm doing the exact same thing that we've just done before here. I have included in that slide a link to the email writing meta prompt, just like the LinkedIn style guide meta prompt. So you can use that. Feel free to do that at home. You'll see all these cool videos of agents that write emails for you and so forth. It's never going to work unless the agent has access to style guides so it can write like you. So what you're learning today is a key part of this whole automation journey we're on over the next couple of years. Styles, building up your style guide, building up your examples is going to be crucial for anything that you want to be on brand, both personally and company-wise. Okay, so what do we think? Yeah, you getting decent results? I mean, hopefully a big improvement on what you would have otherwise got without it. Just to go back to why has it improved? Well, maybe you had a little bit in your custom instructions about you, and then you just jumped in here with an idea and said, please write a post about whatever, and you got this draft LinkedIn post. But, you couldn't really work with it. There's a huge amount of work to do on it because it just didn't sound like you. So now we've put tokens in the token sequence that describe how you write. They have little samples and extracts from emails that we've trained this on. And now the token sequence, you can imagine that's getting fed in here, allows it to predict these tokens for the draft LinkedIn post on a much more accurate basis than without that. So that's kind of what's going on behind the scenes.
So you really should keep your business separate, even though it's linked in or
I think so.
This needs to be consistent for that, and you need to be there is a little bit of overlap, obviously, with you.
Yeah, and I think the business ones really are mostly, if I look at that sort of list of the types of different LinkedIn posts, the business ones, I guess, are mostly like updates, announcements. These ones all tend to be very personal, asks, signal boosts of others, stories, takes, etc. Those tend to be more the personal ones that you're writing. The company ones tend to be, maybe a case study thing you would have, but they tend to be, I mean, the other thing I've learned over the years with social media, and I mean, we have Matt Mason from Social Tap sitting in the front row here who would be the expert on this, but people don't really follow companies, they follow people. So the yes, we need to put the obligatory announcements out through the company social media accounts, but it's the personal ones that really drive the engagement and that people want to follow. But we'll get into that. How do we refine the idea, which we haven't really done today. Today, all we really focused on is, does it sound like me? We're less worried about the what, and we're more worried about how it sounds. Next week, we'll focus on how do we refine this idea so that when it actually writes this, the idea is bang on. It's like, that's what I was talking about. Okay, does that make sense? So we're sort of going to do that in 2 parts. Okay, so the next exercise is we're going to see if we can automate this. Okay, and I'm going to teach you a technique we haven't done so far, which is called prompt chaining. Prompt chaining, in this instance, is where we might take an idea, we might generate a draft, and then we might have a separate agent whose job it is to take an editorial lens on this and do an edit of it. Okay? So this is called prompt chaining. We're basically using a prompt here to write the first draft. We're feeding the output from that into another AI. This one's job is to edit this, in other words, to make sure, does it meet all the checklists, etc. And what's quite nice is we can use different models here. So we're learning this idea that we can create a prompt chain, one to the next, to the next, to the next if we wanted to. I'm going to introduce you to a trigger that we haven't really used so far that I'm finding very interesting and helpful for creating these little mini apps that you can share with your team. It's called on form submission. And what I've learned is that you can design a little form here. So for example, I've created a form in this automation we're going to learn where I just dump the idea into it, hit go. It sends the idea into this AI agent, which has our, it pretty much does what we just did in ChatGPT and Claude, except we're not having to fiddle around in ChatGPT and Claude. All we have to do is just dump our idea in there, feeds in here. This is then going to use ChatGPT or Claude or whichever model we want to try. It's going to produce the draft. It's going to feed the draft to the editor agent. And the editor agent has a prompt in it where it's got to act as a Pulitzer Prize winning editor. The ghostwriter has written the thing. The editor's now going to review it. And coming out the other end, it's going to give us a markdown file that just downloads automatically to our computer. We can drag and drop that markdown file into Google Docs. And then over the next few weeks, as you're improving your N8N automations, of course, the trigger and the end state can all change. So your trigger here might be watching a Google spreadsheet, for example. And as you add ideas to the Google spreadsheet, it triggers this, boom, minutes later, you've got draft LinkedIn posts popping up in your Google Drive. You didn't have to do anything. All you had to do was search around, listen to things, watch things, bookmark them, and boom, you got all these different candidate drafts that you could use. So this end and this end are going to change over time. The bit that we're going to learn today is how to build this little mini app, because if we can create a little form, we can spin that up internally as a tool, give it to someone, they can bank some information into it. What they put into the form then feeds into whatever agent flow we have here. The form waits, and then once this finishes, it displays the results literally on the form after you hit submit. So let's learn how to do this. Some of you will not have N8N set up yet, but the good news is I have catered for that eventuality. Let me just all right, I'm just adding this slide at the end here. If you don't already have access to N8N and you don't have an open router API key because you've missed previous sessions, that's okay. Click on on this link, click on this link here, get your open router key. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. And I just need to remember. Okay, so what you're going to do, if you don't already have an open key and you don't have an invitation to the N8N instance that I've set up, if you click on this link, it'll take you to that little app. You're going to put in your details and you're going to add this invite code, Tokenizer 2025. And when you hit request API key, what that should pop up is a little API key. You're going to copy that and it should give you a link to log into N8N. Now, for those that haven't done this N8N stuff before, we're into week 4 of it, so you might have to forgive us if we keep moving, because we've got 40 minutes to get through this. You might watch, we've got the previous videos, you can always catch up on it if you want to learn how to use this automation tool. So we're going to try and create this from scratch rather than just copying and pasting an existing workflow, because I think that way I can teach you all how to do this.
I've literally just got to figure out how to copy it.
Okay, let's do this from scratch. I'm going to save it. Let's create a new workflow, and the trigger is going to be on form submission. So the trigger, if you just type in here form, it's going to give us N8N form, and on new N8N form submission. It should pop up modal like this. Let's just escape out of it for a second. The next thing we're going to add is we're going to add our AI agent to this. You know the drill. Add a system message. We'll come back to each of these things in a second. And then finally, we are going to add a form ending. Okay. So just to quickly show you the basic scaffold of this workflow, we have a form submission feeding into an AI agent, and we have a form ending here. And the idea is that we're going to bang our idea for a post in here. It's going to feed it into our AI agent, which is going to use our style guide, and it's going to use the idea that we put in there. It's going to process that, and it's going to give us the post back out on a form response. Of course, the idea of this is you can build this into a little tool that you give the team. So it's not just something that you have learned and you've now taken a workflow, you've automated it, and you've exposed it as a tool to your team. So the first thing we'll do is let's jump into our form design. This is very powerful, actually, very cool thing. Let's just give it a title.
Where was the form ending?
Form ending is just under form. If you type up form, you'll see N8N form there, and then click on that and you'll see form ending. Yep. Okay, so back into the form submission, let's just give it a little title, which will be LinkedIn post maker. Add your idea for a post below. Okay, now we need some form elements. Form elements effectively, when you're designing a form, you've of course got different types of form fields. Very powerful, you've got all sorts of different ones here. We're gonna go with something quite simple. The field name is important. So we are gonna call this field name LinkedIn underscore idea. Okay? And then we're changing the element type to be a text area. So the difference between text, which is the default, and a text area, text is generally a single line form input. Text area is potentially, is a multi-line form. And if we're going to be pasting a whole bunch of text in there, we want to make it easier for us to see it. So let's just all have a little look here. All we've done, we've called it LinkedIn Post Maker, given it a little description. We've gone to add a form element. We've called it LinkedIn idea. We have dropped this down and we've selected text area. Placeholder, for the purposes of usability, you can just say paste your paste post idea in here. Okay. And then you can see that it's giving us this little message here that says the user will be taken to the next form node. And the reason that that's popped up is that at the end of our workflow, we added that form ending. If we didn't have that, this would say something different. Okay, has everyone managed to get to that step? All right. Now we all know what to do here. We're going to add open router. And we're going to select a chat model. So choose your account. And I'm going to try the GPT-5 chat model for this, which is now available. Okay, so we added our model. We don't need to do anything with memory or tools for the moment. If we go back into our AI agent, we need to add a system message. And for the system message, we are going to copy and paste our style guide. Okay, so find your style guide from before, not the meta prompt, but the actual style guide that we produced. Where is mine? There we go. Edit, copy as markdown. Right, so we're pasting our style guide prompt as the system message for this AI agent. Now the thing that we have to change is that you can see the default source for the user prompt currently says connected chat trigger node. And of course we do not have a connected chat trigger node, we have a form. So we need to change that. And we change that to define below. And let's just click out of this for 1 second. So let me just quickly show you what we did there. Source for prompt was default was connected chat trigger node, but we're not using that. So we have to define what the field is called that we get from the form trigger. So we'll come to this in a second. For the moment, let's type in here, say, please write a LinkedIn post
The style guide. Yeah, style guide.
based on the idea below. And then I'm just going to say idea. And then of course what we need to do here is we need to put the placeholder so that the idea that we pasted in the previous step gets brought in, expanded here, and then this whole thing runs. So how do we find out the name of that thing? We click on execute previous nodes. Or we just double click on this and oops. Okay, it's wanting me to go and fix this thing at the end here. So let's go to the end form thing all we have to put is a title, and we'll call this draft LinkedIn post. Okay, and that should now allow us to go back to our initial one, double click on it. And if we go execute this step, it should pop up our form. Okay, it's popped up our form. And let's just test something in here. We'll simply just say a post about pirates. Submit that. And we should see that as our output here. Why are we not seeing that as our output? Stop listening. That's the trigger event.
Didn't you remove the trigger event?
Sure, that's what it is. Okay, let me stop that. I find sometimes it's a little bit buggy when you try and stop these events. So what I do is I name it. I'm going to say CB LinkedIn poster, and I just save it, and then I refresh it so I don't lose the workflow. Okay, let me just refresh it.
What's that? So in there, yeah, so Chris has got an instance that's set up, we can do it there and transfer across. Yeah, and you can also see the sketch with that.
My little server's under some load here from everyone using the NAN. $5 hobby server might not handle all this. Anyone managed to get it working? I've of course got an emergency backup here. Called emergency gist that you can click on here and get the workflow. But we've got to get good at doing this stuff. All right, CB LinkedIn poster. So LinkedIn idea has got to, if we execute this step, what I'm expecting to happen is I'm expecting to see what I've put in here. Idea about a whale. Submit. All right, there we go. So that's better. So now I can actually see that's what was missing that time. I can actually see the output here, and I can see what this is called. It's called LinkedIn idea. So of course now when I go into my AI agent, I've got those fields on the left-hand side here, and I can just drag this one in here just to make sure that's correct. It was correct anyway. So that's what you're wanting to see. You're wanting to test that form submission. I had to refresh mine, and then you'll notice the field that comes through, and what we're going to do is we're mapping that field into our user prompt here. So please write a LinkedIn post based on the idea below. Is basically going to put this JSON field, which we got from the form submission, putting it in here, and then in the system message, we have our LinkedIn style guide post. Okay, So if we think about what is getting sent to the LLM here, it's the system message saying you are the voice and style guide for person X, and then please write a LinkedIn post based on the idea below, and boom, the information for the LinkedIn post. So that's what's getting sent to the LLM, and what we're expecting to come out the other end here is a nice little LinkedIn post. Anyone need any help on this step? Everyone managed to get that? If you want to cheat, you're just going to go and put that directly in there. Okay, so now what I can do is I should be able to just execute the step, and it should give me a story about a whale in my voice. Okay. And then if I test this last step here, I execute this step, it should pop up our form and show me. So I've got to make sure that we bring the completion message that we want here, of course, is the output from the AI agent. Okay. Okay. So let me run through it again. Our form just has one field, and that field importantly is called LinkedIn idea. Our AI agent has a user message here where we dynamically populate the LinkedIn idea that we captured in the form. Remember, we could create a user prompt here with lots of different form fields. So we capture them in that initial form. It could be first name, last name, company name, etc., etc. We could bring each of those form fields into a prompt. So this is called, now it's a prompt template. So now we're bringing fields into that prompt. At the moment, we just bring the idea, but we could have collected all sorts of other information there. We have our system message here, and I can already see that what I need to do is I'm going to put a little line here, and I'm going to put a little warning message saying important. Do not include any preamble or post-amble. Only respond with the post draft. Okay. So now that I've got that, we have the end-to-end thing in place. Stop. Save. It's not user error necessarily. I think this stopping workflows is sometimes a little bit buggy. So I'm just going to refresh it, which takes too long. And now I'm going to test it with an actual proper post. So let me find something interesting. Okay, copy that, edit, copy as markdown. Go into my little workflow here.
Chris, are you using the same, did you see any changes by having the editor agent kind of recheck that second step that you do?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and again, it depends on how you prompt it. I actually like to use, I had ChatGPT, I had GPT-5 do the first one, and I had Claude do the edit. And I'll show you in a sec, but basically I just changed the style guide prompt a little bit in the second one.
Right.
So I pasted it as a system message, and I changed it to say, instead of you are a Pulitzer Prize winning ghostwriter, you're an editor, and your job is to edit this to make sure that it matches the style guide rules. I'll come to that in a sec. So just to show everyone what happens here now is if I make this active, and I double click on this and go to my production URL. This is actually giving me a nice little hosted form, which I can open up in a new window here. So here's my form. And I should be able to paste my idea in here. I didn't want all that garbage. Sorry, these are all just previous tests. Okay, paste that in. Okay, I'm just gonna, please make me a post on this checklist. Nice thing is you can drag and drop, you can drag these things, make them bigger. Please make me a post on this checklist, which I found really interesting. Okay, now if I hit submit, what we should see is it should be taking this form submission, feeding it into our agent, using our style guide, and responding with a written draft.
Where did you get the link?
So the link, and it worked, so that's awesome. So the link is here. So if you open the on form submission, double click on that, go to production URL, and if you click on this, it automatically copies that to your clipboard. Then you can open that in a new window. Has anyone got that working? Who needs help?
If I wanna cheat and copy and paste,
If you want to cheat and copy and paste,
your example.
if you go to this,
Yep, the link.
if you go to this link here, and you just Command A or Control A, Command C, copy that whole thing in Edin. If you create a new workflow, you can just paste that and paste it as a workflow. But you'll need to edit the prompts. At least you can see where they are. You can go in and change the system messages, but yeah. Does anyone need any help? Matt, you got it working?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Anyone else? Tim, you got it working? Which bit? We've got a little bit of time. Let's see if we can get everyone getting this working. Just to wrap it up, what we could do here is to put this through another editorial step. And I know people like John and Matt who have companies that do a lot of writing and posting and editorial work. The sky's really the limit in terms of the editorial process you want to create here. So if I just clicked on this here, I could add another AI, an AI agent. I'm going to give it a model, OpenRada. You know, I could make this one Claude or whatever. 3.5 Sonnet. My system message in here, I might say, I could just do a copy and paste of my so changing that expression. It's going to come from this previous step here. Execute the previous node. just taking the JSON output from this previous step here, we're feeding it here. And we're saying the ghost written draft. Ghost is below you to perform your and I'm going to change this to say URA. What I did there was I've just created a second agent step here. That step could really do anything. All I've done is I've just put the JSON output from the previous step into this. I've created a small prompt template here. This is the ghost written draft. I just copied and pasted the style guide again, but I made this little bit of preamble here saying you're a Pulitzer Prize winning editor. Your job's to edit the ghost written draft post to ensure it exactly meets the style guide stipulated below, and then I've put the style guide there. This one I'm using 3.5 Sonnet, really good writing model. This one I'm using GPT-5 Chat. This just wires straight back into the same node. So now I should be able to just test this and we'll go through a two-step process. Maybe I just need to save that. Trigger event, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Save it. So that's saved. And now if I go back to and I say please write a post about this set of AI adoption tips below that I really enjoyed. Okay, let me kick that off. And then if we go back here, we should see this. So it's taking that, passing it into our first agent, which has the style guide that's going to write it. Then it's going to take that output, it's going to feed it to our second agent, whose job is to edit that and make sure that it complies with our editorial guidelines. There we go. So that's a prompt chain, and if we had the time, you know, I'm sort of enamored by this idea of having quite complex editorial chains where I could pass that draft across to an illustration agent. The illustration agent will find matching images to add to that, might develop charts, might develop other things, and sort of you basically pass a a work in progress document from one to the next to the next to the next through an editorial chain, and eventually you end up with a draft for a human to review that has, you know, more than just text in it. It has, you know, it's used web search to go and find additional information, it's found images that match, it's done sort of generated illustrations that are valuable, and so on. But I think we're gradually learning the building blocks here that we can string together to do that kind of thing. Today, the key thing that we learned was about style guides and the importance of having a style guide in whatever writing we're going to be doing. The same is true, for example, if you create an agent that's making little mini sites for you, you want to give it a style guide that it uses your company colors and uses certain HTML elements and, you know, logos, images, etc. You'll also provide a style guide to that. So, look, hopefully we all got something useful out of that. As I said, I think exercise 4, rinse and repeat what you learned today. Create the hardest step is creating the email examples, and that's not a hard step. That's 40 minutes to an hour of work. And then once we start getting into creating agents that can manage your email for you, what that agent will do is it'll have access to a style guide. So it never writes anything when it hasn't first read the style guide to make sure that it writes in your tone of voice. So definitely worthwhile creating style guides. All right. I believe we have a barbecue waiting upstairs, so let's go and have a snack. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.